I've never shared this story with anyone outside my family. Even now, years later, my hands shake as I type this. If you think the world is just as it seems, you're wrong. I learned that the hard way, one summer night in 2009. I grew up in a small town in Oregon, a place surrounded by thick forests and old legends. Devil's Bend was one of those places people whispered about, a stretch of winding road in the middle of nowhere, notorious for car accidents and missing persons. Most people avoided it at night. My friends and I, we thought it was just an eerie story to keep kids from reckless driving. That night, my best friend Jason and I were heading home after a late-night bonfire at the lake. It was past midnight when we turned onto Devil's Bend, the headlights barely cutting through the dense fog rolling in from the woods. Jason was driving, and I was in the passenger seat, half listening to the radio while scrolling through my phone. Then we saw her. A woman standing on the side of the road, barefoot, wearing a white dress stained with dirt. Her hair was long and tangled, covering half of her face. She stood unnaturally still, staring straight ahead at nothing. Jason slowed down. "Should we stop?" he asked, his voice uncertain. Every horror movie I'd ever seen screamed at me to say no, but something about her was wrong. She didn't look like someone who had just wandered too far from home. She looked lost in a way that went beyond being physically misplaced. "Yeah," I found myself saying. "We can't just leave her." Jason pulled over and I rolled down my window. "Hey, are you okay? Do you need a ride?" She didn't react. Not at first. Then slowly she turned her head toward us, her expression blank. I'll never forget what happened next. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but no words came out. Just a strangled, guttural sound. Then, in a motion too fast for my brain to process, she lunged forward, slamming both hands against my window. Jason screamed and hit the gas. The tires screeched as we sped away, leaving her behind in the swirling fog. My heart was pounding out of my chest. I turned to my seat, expecting to see her shrinking in the distance. She wasn't there. She had disappeared. Jason and I didn't talk for the rest of the drive. We were too shaken. When we finally pulled into my driveway, we just sat there in silence, breathing heavily. Then Jason's phone buzzed. We both jumped. He hesitated before picking it up. His face went pale. "It's an unknown number," he whispered. The call ended before he could answer. Then my phone buzzed. "Unknown number." I didn't pick up. Instead, I checked my messages. There was a new one from an unknown sender. It was a picture. A blurry, dark photo of two people sitting in a car. Our car. Jason and me. We bolted out of the car and ran inside my house, locking every door and window. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Jason convinced me to go back to Devil's Bend in the daylight, to prove to ourselves that it was just a trick of the night, a prank, something explainable. We found no trace of the woman, but we did find something else. Near the spot where we had seen her, half buried in the dirt, was an old, rusted locket. I picked it up and opened it. Inside was a faded picture of a young woman, and beneath it, scratched into the metal, was a date, July 17th, 1993. Jason and I exchanged a look. We had seen that date before. Back in high school, we had researched local legends for a class project. July 17th, 1993, was the night a woman named Rachel Carter went missing near Devil's Bend. Her car was found, crashed in the woods, but her body was never recovered. The woman we saw, it was her. I don't drive on Devil's Bend anymore. In fact, I moved away from that town years ago. Jason and I drifted apart. We never spoke about that night again. But sometimes, late at night, my phone will buzz. Unknown number. I never answer.